I had a similar one when I posted the tilt-turn windows. They're like, this is nothing new. You're pretending like this hasn't existed for 40 years. Like, I look around, I'm like, who said I invented this? Welcome back to the Modern Craftsman. Hey, there's a feeling that most builders don't talk about publicly. It's not fear of the market. It's not fear of a project going wrong. It's the feeling that you're pretending, that everyone else has it figured out on how to run a business and that you're just over here improvising and eventually someone's going to notice. Today, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how we compare ourselves to the previous generation and vice versa, how we compare ourselves to other people, how social media has played a negative impact, also a positive impact, and how the imposter syndrome is dealt with, between myself and Tyler. And what we find has been the biggest benefit of making new friends, especially this last decade.
This podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. I'm getting close. Windows and doors. I'm getting close on my project. I'm hoping to be framing here shortly to be installing my Andersen Windows and doors.
You just looked at your watch like you were like in an hour.
It could be. I'm looking at the date, and I'm waiting on some product that I need to get in. Then I can get my floor slab poured, and then the deck framed, and then walls and roof. And at that point, start getting windows and doors in. And it's crazy to me that I'm getting to that point, and it's been so long coming. Working with them, going back and forth, doing my takeoffs, helping design, helping choose product, mixing and matching products to suit my needs and what works for us. And I'm very excited to get to that point and document the install with Andersen. So you guys make sure that you're keeping an eye on that. It's going to be here sooner than later. So I'm super excited about that. We had somebody who reached out, I think Dave may have sent us, where it's like, hey, I'm in this area. If you really need help lifting and moving those windows and doors, I'll come help.
Hell yeah.
On a previous podcast, I was like, yo, they're heavy. I need some help. So I was being somewhat facetious, but I do appreciate the support. Maybe once I'm ready to start installing, I'll need some help getting them in. But yeah, it's going to be happening soon. I'm super excited to show you guys what we picked, what we're using, and why we selected those products. So if you are interested in using Andersen Windows and Doors on your project for a client, for your own home, check them out.
This podcast is also brought to you by Harnish Workwear. Guys, it is literally 100 degrees in Boston today, and I'm glad I have nice, comfortable, breathable t-shirts
to sit in your office.
Yo, shut up. Either way, we just got a big shipment, and all the guys were asking for new t-shirts because after last summer, a lot of them were worn out. But we always work with Harnish, their H-Label program. You can reach out to them with either a predetermined design, or they can help with design and get you what I think is the best fitting t-shirt in the game. So if you're interested, harnishworkwear.com.
Well, all right. So I had a couple of things go on this week that you and I were talking offline about. Just work, things that are happening internally, personally, house build, questioning what you're doing, the way the people view what you're doing, and looking at just another aspect of that, what our generation faces versus the generation of our parents, generations before that, people who are 20 years older than us. And it's a different world we live in today. I, even from like a social media perspective, felt a few years ago that I would get a lot of shit from people who were close to our age. And I understand that. I think that that's possibly an insecurity thing. People potentially, and I don't mean anything by this, this is not being conceited, but jealous of what you're doing, jealous of what you have going on. Yeah. Again, insecurity about their market, what they're doing, and it's just people trying to bring you down to make themselves feel better. That's a lot tougher conversation when it becomes people who you know, people who are closer to you. But one thing I experienced recently, and I think I did send you this, but I had a post go somewhat viral and get a lot of views, and it wound up going viral on Facebook, which I don't know if I've experienced that before or not. So normally on Instagram, you start getting these people commenting, but it went on Facebook, and it's just old people just trashing me. Like, and it's people who are out of the work scene. I mean, maybe they're still working, but they don't look like they should be working. It just looks like these old curmudgeons who are sitting on their computer, just like tearing me up, being like, tell me you don't know what you're doing without telling me you don't know what you're doing. I've been doing that for 30 years. This is nothing new. You thought that you invented this. And I just start questioning, like, what is going on in the world today that people feel that this is what they have to do?
That specific comment is one of my favorites, because it's like, I look around, I'm like, who said I invented this?
Yeah, dude, exactly. Like, what?
What? Like, it was, I had a similar one when I posted the tilt turn windows. They're like, this is nothing new. You're pretending like this hasn't existed for 40 years. I'm like, when was I pretending that?
It's insane. I've grown thick enough skin.
Yeah.
That, you know, the social media aspect of it, sometimes I'll be in a bad mood and I just want to write back like F off. Somebody wrote, so the post was digging my crawl space, and I'm working by myself at my property, and I didn't feel like having somebody on a grade rod, so I got an extra receiver for my rotary laser from Stabila, and I just welded up some square tubing and put magnets on it and used it on the stick of my excavator so that I could roll out my bucket, plumb my stick, and then get a sense of where I was with grade, so while I was digging, so that I didn't have to keep hopping out and checking grade with the grade rod. First time digging a foundation. Obviously the equipment's smaller than I should be using. It's what I have, but like, people saying that I'm acting as though I invented that, that I'm hourly, and that I could do that without a laser. And it's just all of this crap where I'm like, what are you all talking about, and who cares?
Right.
Like, what does it even matter? But then somebody was like, my time, or tell me that you're hourly. I was like, this is my own property and my own equipment. And he's like, yeah, but my time is more valuable than that. And I'm like, obviously not, if you're trolling a stranger on Facebook. Like, how valuable is your time if you're just sitting here trolling me on Facebook? But it's the first time I experienced that in a while, where I'm like, damn, there's some people who are just ruthless on the internet.
It's brutal. And I will say, like, I'm similar in the sense that when it comes to the internet, it's just I have thick skin. I'm like, you guys are all idiots. Like, you know, you have such a micro view into who I am. I mean, I constantly get, you can tell this guy's never swung a hammer. You can tell that he's never touched a tool in his life. I'm like, based on what? Like, because, like, for what reason? And it's just like they you know, and that's just social media, right? Like, it's like these, you know, tiny little snippets of someone's life, and you're like, oh, that's who they are. That is who they are, you know, through and through. Never wore work boots, wears white sneakers, blah blah blah, like, yeah, blah blah blah. But in person is different. And it's like, you know, someone, you know, you said, like, even our like, when you first started doing it, like, even our generation, you know, I think early on there was a lot of, not like making fun of, but kind of like, oh, how's the social media thing doing?
Yeah.
Like, kind of diminishing it. And now I feel like, you know, I mean, maybe I just ignore it too. But it's like, when people question what you're doing in person, or like it's someone close to you, that just sends me. It's like I spiral.
I think it's tough, and I think that comes down to the people that I have in my life at this point that I want in my life are people who do support me regardless of what I'm doing. So it's tough when those people who are in your life who you want to be supporting you don't feel as though they're supporting you what you're doing, even just from like a positivity perspective.
Yeah.
And to me that's tough, and I think that more so again at this point I find the social media aspect of it mostly comical. Sometimes shit that people say online is annoying, but it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't make me question what I'm doing. I can laugh it off. But when you have a friend, a family member, a colleague that begins to question what you're doing, or just make a comment or a snide remark, it's like, well, what am I doing? Is this the right thing? Should I be doing this? What's it all for? What's it worth? Why am I doing this? And I think that's a much tougher pill to swallow than just some random person online.
Totally. Because I feel like there's trust there, right? Like you trust that person, and it's like, and you feel as though and a lot of times they start by supporting you.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when like they look at you and see that you're struggling to believe in yourself. Like I feel like you get a tremendous amount of support from someone. But the moment that you get this confidence and like you're taking these strides, whether it's like personal or professional development, like then people look at you and like, whoa, like calm down, dude. Like you're not that great.
Yeah.
And it's, and there's a bunch of sayings around this, but it's like once you start, it's almost as though like once someone realizes that you're doing better than them, they almost go into the opposite of support.
Which is insane to me, because the people who I'm close with and the people that I care about, I want nothing but success for them.
Right.
Whether it be friends, whether it's colleagues, whether it's my kids, my wife, I want them all to be more successful than I am. Why wouldn't I be? It has no bearing on me. It has no impact on me. I'm surrounding myself with people who have more experience, who are more successful. That's only going to make me a better person, a better business person, better father. It makes no sense for me to not support the success or the growth of the people around me, the people that I care about.
Yeah, it's weird. I just don't understand why you'd feel any way different.
It would be as though even like for example, my wife Rachel, like she supports anything that I'm doing. If I'm struggling, she may not necessarily have the time to help me figure out how to get from point A to point B, but she's always going to emotionally back what I'm doing and support me with what I'm doing and ensure that, hey, I have your back. We'll figure this out. Anything that you need to do. And those are the people that I want in my life. Mm-hmm. And the people that I support myself. And it's odd to me a lot of times also that those people can be friends, people that you're not related to, essentially strangers, and at times not the people who are closest to you or the people you've known for the longest amount of time. Like when I look at my support group of people behind me, it's not necessarily my brothers and my sisters and my parents, my immediate family, yes, but like most of the people that I turn to when I need help in life are people that I'm not related to. Yeah. It's people that I haven't known since I was 10 years old, 5 years old. It's people that I've met the last decade that are in a similar position to myself, that know what we're going through, that want to support us and see us succeed. And that's where I base a lot of my relationships off of now, where it's like, yeah, you can be my friend, you can support me when things are going well, but what happens when things aren't going well? Like, do you have my back? Are you willing to help? Are you there to support me? Are you there to see this through? Like, just emotionally stand behind what I'm going through. And I think that that's super important. and helps me get through whatever I'm dealing with at that point in my life.
What do you feel like? What goes through your mind when, someone that is close to you is just like straight up not supporting you, or like totally against you, or or in their eyes like calling you out on your bullshit?
Sometimes I'm like, why the hell do I even try?
Yeah.
Like in life, and also the relationship aspect of it. And then not very often, but sometimes it does just hurt, where I'm like, damn, I thought it was different. I thought things had changed. I think that I have thick enough skin now where and I think that I'm doing things a certain way that I'm not questioning what I'm doing on a daily basis. But for me, oftentimes, and this is something that I could probably work on, where it's like I'm hot or cold, I'm on or off, where it's like, if you're not supporting me, if I don't feel like you're adding value to my life, then I'll just cut you out of my life.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's the best case or the way to be doing things, but a lot of times I'm like, I have so much shit going on with, just like everyone does, but why am I going to try and maintain relationships with people that aren't making my life better, or aren't contributing to my life, or aren't having a positive impact on my life?
Yeah, and I think people might argue it's like, I struggle with the whole but they're family argument, and or they're friends, right? And it doesn't always have to be transactional. I'm like, no, I get that, and I understand that this isn't always about business, but it is about supporting one another, and it is about respect, and regardless if they're close friends or family, why would you continue to put effort? I'm not saying don't put effort, period. I'm saying continuing to put effort. When it, like, if you continue to put effort and there's just no reciprocation, it's like, I feel like at some point, I mean, our life is so short in just in the grand scheme of things. Like, why would you spend your life trying to, get someone else on the same page? I think, and I know I'm sure you relate to this, but in that moment, like leading up to them, like kind of shutting you down or calling you on your bullshit, at least for me, I like ruminate over wanting to let my guard down and be just super open about like what's going on in my life, about anything, right? Yeah. And I'll be sitting there and I'll be thinking like, all right, if I share this, like, what will they think of me? Or, will they be excited? Will they be proud? Will they be jealous? And, and then it's like you share it, and the moment they like attack, it's like, boom, guard goes back
ammunition.
Up. Like, I was like, fuck. I was like, exactly. It's like, hey, and then you just get shot.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, like, I knew I was gonna get shot. Like, why did I go in?
So something that I've realized, and this isn't happening that often, but when something like that happens in my life, and I spend a lot of time on the job by myself, I spend a lot of time in the office by myself, and I don't have distractions, so I'm just mentally going through what happened in my head. But I'll spend days just replaying that exchange in my head, and then if the exchange was bad initially, after a day of me replaying everything and then realizing what was said and the little digs and the little stabs and that ammunition, so to speak, I'm like, damn, that was worse than like face value or the initial conversation. And I almost have to analyze that. I have to quantify all of that, and then I can just quietly make a decision about how to proceed at that point. But I need time to understand what that exchange, like my first reaction is F this, screw this, I'm done, I have other shit to do. And then when I get done being angry or upset, or that knee-jerk reaction to it, I start internalizing everything, and I start questioning the validity of it, and then I start really replaying that, and understanding what that exchange looked like, which is probably not the best thing to do. Like, I don't know, I come to terms with it, or you could run away from it. I don't know what the better option is, but I'll just be like, I just need a couple days.
Yeah.
And then I'll assess everything. And then at that point, it's like, I kind of want to have another conversation, but I don't know if it's any good.
Yeah. I mean, I would be a much better debater if I had time to prep.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, man, like, you know, you sit and like, man, I lost that fight, but like now I know how I could have won.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I could have said this and it would have been over. But yeah, I'm the same way. It's you know, I had a conversation with someone recently where they had said something to me that was essentially an attack to me, and I was just like, it was totally unrelated to the conversation. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. And I just deflected and was like, hey, this isn't about me. We're talking about you. And then a day later, I was like, that was fucked up. And I was like, that, like, and you know, and I was like, my mind, you know, had time to process it and really think about, all right, how did we get to that point in the conversation? What did it actually mean? And what does that mean for me? And you know, and that's like, you know, that's personal and professional. It's, you know, it's difficult, but it's similar to when you're fighting, like in, you know, getting in stupid fights with like your wife or something. And, you know, your immediate reaction is like, at least for me, like my immediate reaction is defense.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, like that's not true. Like this is how it is. And this is what I did. And that's just not good. Like, especially in Meg is like, she's on point in terms of like she can just shut down a fight immediately.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't know. And then 2 days later, I'm like, damn, I could have had that. but in the moment, I'm like, I want to fight and I want to defend myself. But then it's like when I can be like when I can take the time to slow down and just be like be considerate of, all right, what's going on right now? Hold on, pause. Let me cool down. And for an hour, I'll be all worked up and I want to send this text, or I want to do this. And then an hour later, I look at it. I'm like, oh, I'm actually fine.
Yeah,
like, this is pointless. This is stupid. And it's just funny how when you're in the moment, you just want to react to everything.
Yeah.
And then when and it's, you know, to your point, you know, a day or two later, you know, I'm still thinking about it, but that's just because I think for me, something hasn't neutralized it. Mm-hmm. Where the conversation ended on such a negative note, I just need something. Like I'll use Meg as an example. You know, we get in a fight. The last thing that we chat about was negative, like. And we're just that's where we currently are. So I'll just ruminate on it, and then she'll text and be like, "Hey, love you, have a good day." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm good. We're neutral. We're not getting. We're actually fine. We're not getting a divorce. Hey, we're good. Like everything's good. I thought she hated me."
Is there like coping mechanisms that you have now that you've learned or more matured to understand that those knee-jerk reactions probably aren't the best?
I think you asked two questions there, I think. So I have learned, I have definitely learned more about myself and the fact that I like to be defensive.
Yeah.
So I will take more time, and especially through text message, I'm more apt to just ignore it and come back to it because I want, I tend to just want to quickly respond. In terms of coping mechanisms, that's usually when I go to the gym and I put more weight in the bar and make myself want to pass out.
I think I've learned to get those. It's almost regardless of whether you send that text, you send that email, you say that thing. If you're able to put it down on paper and just not send it, it almost has the same effect for me. Like I need to collect my thoughts. I need to get it out of my system, but I don't necessarily need to put it out there. Like I don't need to hit send. So a lot of times with emails, it's not as much clients. A lot of times text messages is worse because it's so easy to immediately send a response. And I'll type out a response, or I'll type a response in my notes so that I don't accidentally send it. Yeah. And then, honestly, like, I'll even send that response with whatever's going on to see outside of my own head into, like, an AI platform where it's like, tell me if I'm completely out of line here. Like, play devil's advocate. Give me some perspective here. But I hold off on sending that because I think if I give myself 10 minutes, if I give myself an hour, if I give myself a day, I'm going to have a much different reaction and feeling towards whatever situation is happening, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. But I'm going to feel differently, and just sending what I want to send immediately, I've learned after 40 years that generally does no good.
No, not at all.
Like,
and some people, like, I'm not a person that just needs to point out and be mad about shit. Meg is.
Yeah.
Meg's like, let me be mad, and and I think I've shared this before, but she'll be super mad at something. If I don't respond to it, she will cool down and be fine.
Yeah.
If I respond to it, forget it. It's like,
even in a positive way, like killing them with kindness is way worse.
Yeah, and it's like all I'm doing is putting fuel in that fire.
Yeah.
Where
it's like, oh yeah, you're right, I'm sorry, and then they're like, now I'm just pissed off that you're saying that you're right. Like,
I'm making everyone think Meg is a monster, but it's just like, that's just her personality versus mine.
Yeah.
Where it's, she, when I get mad at something, I'm like, fuck, this is stupid.
Yeah,
but I don't go and call attention to it. I just deal with it.
Yeah. I see that even in my kids as well. Like, Tilly's more so like me. So when there's something that's bothering me, it's like I'm going to spiral, and I probably want to get other people around me to spiral as well. And Rachel's learned just like, all right, I'm just not going to respond to this. And that's a good reaction for me, because whether she gives me good advice or bad advice back, it's the same thing. I'm just engaging somebody else to try and, I guess, expel some of that negative energy. And Tilly's the same way, but she's learned, and we've learned with dealing with Tilly, it's just like, she has to get through this herself. She has to figure out what she's feeling, and if that's what she's feeling, whether I'm trying to be helpful or I'm trying to be an ass back to her, it's the same. The effect, the result is the same thing. So it's better, like, you need some time to figure this out on your own before you engage with anyone else, because you're gonna, like, say or do shit that you don't actually believe or feel. And I think that that's the best result for me, but it's different for everyone else.
So Indy's similar, where she gets so mad about stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Reed gets really mad about stuff, and he's the type that needs to just go away and then reset, and he'll come back.
Yeah.
Indy can't. And Indy, she needs, I have found that, I mean, she gets very angry and very mean, but you have to somehow convince her to come and give you a hug. And like, you give her a hug for 2 minutes, that it literally, you watch her reset.
Yeah.
She just needs, and unfortunately, she's so mean in those moments. The last thing you want to do is give her a hug. You're like yelling at her to get, like, go to your room.
Yeah.
And that just makes the situation 10 times worse.
Yeah. I've found that I'm better off if I'm feeling a certain way, or I'm anxious, or there's something going on that's stressing me. I'll just try and separate and isolate myself and go deal with it on my own, rather than affect everyone around me and bring everyone else down. What about comparison between what you're doing, what somebody else is doing, what your parents' life looked like versus yours, what people who are younger than you are experienced? That's something that I found with regard to, even, like, we started off this conversation with the Facebook post, that different generations led a different life. They experienced a different world, and allowing that to affect how you're helping people or how you're treating people, I feel, is very unfair. And I'm very well aware of that, even to people who are 10 years younger than us, that they've experienced a much different world. than we were grown up in. I feel that our parents' generation, and this could change again, but I think that our parents' generation experienced a lot of things that made life much easier than we did. And that's not to say that there weren't challenges, but I just think from a financial perspective, from a housing perspective, from a life, the cost of living perspective, it was one of the last generations of affordable living. And I think that it got a little more difficult with us, but I think that we also were old enough to buy a house before it was impossible for people to buy houses. Yeah. And I even look at people who are 30 now who can't get married, who can't buy a house, and don't have enough equity, don't have enough savings, they don't make enough money to afford that. So, like, how do you feel when people compare what they did in their lives to what you're doing, and base their interactions with you on that?
It's I struggle with the whole comparison thing, because it's just everyone has a different upbringing, has a different outlook. I think I struggle more with the fact that people just don't take advantage of opportunity.
Yeah.
And the fact that, hey, you're literally alive and you can do whatever you want in the world, and for you to say anything otherwise, I totally disagree with. And I'll probably get some flack for that, but I just don't believe in the fact that you can't do exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's all, there, I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but I don't know. It's just, there's so much opportunity out there, and the only thing that is stopping you from doing is the inaction that people take. Mm-hmm. So the comparison of how we do things to how our parents' generation did things, I think our parents' generation looks at us that we have it easier, and as you said, we look at them as they had it easier.
Yeah.
And the reality is, like, we're both right in ways. But for them to, I think they see what we do as ridiculous in many ways. Think about let's just, for simplicity's sake, we're 40 years old, and we're creating content to promote our businesses.
Yeah.
And there's other 40-year-olds that are doing that by dancing.
Yeah, that's true.
On social media, right? Like,
probably making way more money.
Probably making way more money. Listen, I love to dance. I'm just not doing it on camera for views. But, like, that's fucking weird. And I think that our parents' generation looks at it and looks at content like the stuff that went viral on Facebook for you as, like, this guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
But it's because they don't understand what the point of that was.
Yeah.
It comes across as, hey, Tyler thinks he invented this new thing. Where it's like, no, I'm literally just documenting how I'm doing something because I think it might help one person. And they don't see that.
I'm curious if, obviously, you're type A, I'm type A. There's, like, an entrepreneurial spirit there. We're go-getters. We're looking to manifest the life that we want for ourselves and not really taking no for an answer. I think that prior generations, it was easier to go out and just get a job and work a job and have a lifestyle that was parallel to what I would call the American dream than it is today, right? You could have a single parent who worked a very standard job and have a house and be able to take a vacation and be able to afford life with a family. And I don't know if that's the case now. And I think that the way that I approach life, I look at there's a ton of opportunity for us, but what about the people who just want to go get a job and just want to work, and they want to be able to afford a house, they want to be able to afford to get married and can't, but they don't want to necessarily create 6 different businesses and line up all of this work. I think that there's a big difference generationally speaking, and I even look at it from our kids' perspective, where it's like, I want to position myself in life to get to a point where I know it's going to be more difficult for our kids to make it, to survive, to have a decent lifestyle, that I'll be able to be in a position when I'm 60 something years old to help my kids out. Not to, I guess, make their lives easier in a sense where it's like you don't have to work, but just they don't have to have anxiety that they're going to be okay. That's to me a big difference generationally speaking, where it's like, even online, I have all of these people sitting behind a computer who are 7 years old just trying to rip me a new one, and it's like, are we even going to have time to sit behind a computer when we're 70?
No. It'll be implanted in our brains.
Yeah.
We can do it. I don't have, like, the idea that people just want to wake up and go to work and make a decent living and come home and live a decent life, versus the people that want to go and build businesses. I think both are fine.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Like, there are people. I want to build businesses. I don't want to go and just work. My struggle is more related to the fact that people that say that, hey, I'll go and have a job, but I still can't afford to live. And, there are, yes, society has become extremely expensive. Life in general has become extremely expensive. But there's different, you can live in different areas, right? Like, and maybe that adds complexity. It's like, no, I need to be near my family. I understand that there's layers to this. Where my point is, that if you want to work less or make less money, then you need to adapt your life to live within those means.
Yeah.
And, social media does a terrible job at, kind of promoting that or even showing that. It seems like everyone makes $1 million and drives around a Lamborghini Urus for their daily driver. But the reality is, like, that is not the case. And there's plenty of people that make $50,000 a year and own a home and live a decent life in their mind. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I think that people just have misaligned expectations, where it's like, I only want to work this much and make this much money, but I also want to live in Boston as an expensive city and have access to all the benefits of living in a city. It's like, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
There's the cost of living changes depending on where you live, and if you would like to live in a more affluent area, you need to make more money. And I think that those are the things that I struggle with, where it's, when you live, if you want to live in a particular area, there's a cost to doing that, and to not be willing to make that make enough money to afford those costs, then you should not then you should not live in that area, or at least recognize that it's not the fault of anyone, except for the fact that you have decided to not put as much effort into making more money.
Yeah.
Or doing something that would award you more money.
I do think that changed fairly quickly, though, even just, from our parents to where we are now, where it's like, you would be able to have live in a suburb of a city and have a single parent working and make, $50,000 a year and have a decent lifestyle. And
yeah,
I think that's not necessarily the case now, right? Things have changed very quickly with the cost of living. and money and the amount of expenses that we have in life. And it seems that in order to afford things that were either non-existent for prior generations or just expected with a little bit of work from prior generations, isn't necessarily the case now. And I think for most of us, right, like our network, the people that we surround ourselves with, good enough just isn't good enough, and we're going to make whatever happen. But even when you look at what Rachel makes, what I make, if that were my, like, the generation before ours, we would be the top 2% of people living in our area. Like, I just saw something on Instagram the other day where it was like 1998 where people were touring an $800,000 or $900,000 house.
That, yeah.
Dude, and it was like insane. And an $800,000 or $900,000 house is like nothing today, and that's 25 years ago.
But that's still locally dependent. I also yes, I do think cost of I don't think we know that cost of living is up, but the cost of living is also tied to the convenience of things, where we pay for convenience. Everyone is paying for convenience, where there's less convenient ways to do things. I mean, going food. You could go and get your own food. You could go hunt and cut up your own meat and then plant vegetables, and you could do all that but on your own, and it would arguably be less expensive.
I actually just saw something on Instagram where it was like 5 or 6 little decrepit looking cherry tomatoes, and it was like $760 water bill.
I knew when I said that, I was like, it would be arguably less expensive. I was like, someone's be like, you know how much a rifle is?
Dude, you don't
the
convenience, but like the convenience is just because there's not enough time for everything right now.
But hold on, if let's play like wild scenario. If you just decided that, hey, you're gonna not have a job, you could, in theory, live. You could build your own house, right? You could I'm going like to a wild example, but like you could build, a house in the woods. You could then go hunt for your own food. You'd start a fire. Like, you would literally live among the land. Like, you could physically do that if you wanted. Most people don't, right? So then as you add convenience to your life, like buying a house instead of building a hut, buying food instead of hunting and finding vegetables, like, yeah, I get it. You're adding convenience, which at some point you add so much convenience that now life in just general is expensive. I don't even know how we got on this topic. This is like so far off base.
Cost of living.
But I know, but I think we were talking about the previous generation. I'm not saying that it's not expensive to live. I just think that, we have become accustomed to the convenience of what we have in our lives, and also the desire to live in more affluent areas, which has just driven that cost and that need to work harder and to make more money. And when you add a little bit to all of those things, next thing you know, it's like everyone has to make 6 figures. Everyone has to,
that's the thing. It's like everything's exacerbating that, because
right.
Even today, it's like you want to go buy a car, it's $100,000.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, gas is $5 a gallon. So it's like, all right, well, I own my own business. Now my new truck costs $125,000. My insurance is now $20,000 a year for that new truck. And how am I going to pay for that? I'm just going to raise my costs. So now the people that want to renovate their bathroom have to spend $50,000 on a bathroom.
Right.
It just exacerbates. Right. And I do feel that it's gotten to the point where, like, yeah, it's like, we'll just keep making more money. Mm-hmm. But it almost seems impossible. Like, I have a buddy of mine who's 30 years old, and he makes great money working for somebody else. And it's like, damn, when I was his age, if I made that type of money, I would have been set.
Yeah.
And that's not the case now. And I think I look at it from that perspective where it's like, not all things are equal. And I don't think that those people are necessarily wanting more without willing to do the work. I just think it's so much more unattainable, and I don't see it getting better, and I see it being harder for our children. And I think I'd like to position myself to be able to help them build some wealth, or at least make their lives a little bit easier, because I think that it would be ignorant to say, yeah, like, you could just live a simpler lifestyle. You could just move somewhere else, where 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you didn't even have to consider those things. Like,
sure.
What my parents survived on, as far as money goes, I think I pay in taxes a year. And, like, there's a big difference there.
Right.
Within 30 years, like, there's a very big difference there, and I don't think that, like, I necessarily want or need more things than my parents' generation had. It's just changed. I mean, you look at it from, like, people who did, even my grandparents, my grandmom didn't work, my grandfather worked. Like, they had a house, they sent all their kids to college, they died with money that they then passed on to the next generation. And it's like, is that going to be the case for everyone else? Like, I see it less and less now, where it's like, all right, we had money and now we're living longer. We're going to exhaust that money before we're able to pass it on. And I think just having some of that perspective is nice for the younger generation, for the people, not necessarily for me, but like for people who are 10 years younger than us, to be like, how can I help you out? How can I help my kids out? How can I make your life easier so that you don't have to struggle the way that we struggled? I do think is important.
Yeah, I mean,
I would go live in a hut and hunt. My wife and kids wouldn't.
I was gonna say, but the convenient, there's other influence.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would go live in a less expensive area. Not necessarily that I want to work less, but just having the financial burden hovering all the time. I don't know who needs that shit, and like I don't know if it's going to be any different anywhere else either, right?
No,
it's kind of going to be the same shit.
Because you would think that, I mean, because in my opinion, you think that you would do that, but then you would be introduced to some level of convenience, and it's like, all right, I'll just do that, and then okay, I'll just add this too. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's like, you start adding these things, and next thing you know, you turn around, you realize how much stuff you're paying for.
Yeah.
And then it's, what can I shed? It's constant. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about like streaming platforms. I'm like, the amount of streaming platforms we pay for. Well, I can't get that movie on this one. I'm like, we don't need any of that.
Yeah.
How many internet? Like, I have an internet provider for my office, my job site, my house, my other.
That's what I mean.
Our
like,
cabin.
No,
like
dude, we had. It wasn't until I was in, I think, high school where we had internet at home, and it was dial-up. And it's like, you really couldn't use it because we only had one phone line, and if you were using it, nobody could use the phone.
Dude, I could buy I have it sitting at White Oak. One Starlink kit, pay $100 a month for it. I could just bring that to my office, to my house, to our
just
cabin.
put it in a backpack.
Literally. And then I just have internet wherever I plug it in. But instead, it's more convenient for me to just have it connected.
But is the convenience because you have too much other shit going on, that it's like, I need my time back? What
time? Plugging it in? This is my point, is that we choose these conveniences because they feel like it's the right thing. When if we were forced, you need to strip it down to like the absolute bare minimum. You could do it and still live a very similar life. because there's so many things that we have added on as all of these extras to our life every day that they just become normal. Right? Going back to the vehicle conversation, like my old Yukon blew up. I ended up getting another truck. For months, I didn't have a truck, and I was like, I'm gonna get the cheapest Yukon I can and just deal with it. I went out and bought an expensive ass truck. It's the highest payment I've ever had on a vehicle. Not like something I never thought I'd even like.
What are we talking?
For a payment?
Yeah,
$1,500 a month.
Yeah. I mean, that's like kind of normal.
But I mean it I guess. I mean, but it used to be $600. Like that was I remember my first truck that I financed was $600 a month. Before that, it was 10 grand.
Mine was like $325, I think. But I put a bunch of money down because I didn't want a payment.
Yeah, I mean, my first two trucks I paid $10,000 for, and now that truck, which is a totally side story. It was a 2001 regular cab short bed Silverado. I just saw one go at auction, same exact truck, sold for 30 grand.
I'm like, dude, you're validating my point.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. But all I'm saying is, like, we have chosen the life of convenience, and because that's what we're sold, and it becomes, and again, everything just adds to this and becomes this life. Let's bring this all the way back to where we're talking about the previous generation and looking at what we're doing from a business perspective. It's the same thing. It's like they would just wake up, go to work, put the tools on, go build some shit, talk to a couple clients, do it over again. You and I dancing on Instagram.
Hell yeah.
Doing some content, filming, talking about it, getting our ass kicked on by old people on Facebook, all to just hopefully get the next job. It's like it again, way more difficult. But that is ultimately the field that we're playing in now. You are irrelevant if you're not going to be in that space.
Do you think it would be a bad look to... Have you ever seen the accounts where they just call out the people who are trolling them?
Yeah, because I remember I sent you.
Yeah. I think it would be so much fun. Like, sometimes I save them and I'm like, this would be so much fun. I just saw one the other day where this lady, she's just, I guess, a lifestyle account, and she goes out and the dude's just tearing her a new one, and she like looks up the dude, then finds his wife, then calls his wife out, and it was like, oh, you're sitting here bashing me, like looking at me wearing this, like I don't think your wife would be very happy that you're watching this. And I'm like, this is actually pure gold,
dude. Like 50 to 60-year-old dudes on Facebook are, I mean, like, do you not realize that everyone sees your comments and stuff?
I think there should be an age threshold where you're just not allowed on anymore.
Yeah,
they just pull your account, be like, nah, it doesn't work anymore. You gotta go live the last part of your life without social media.
The Meg yesterday, she was sitting next to me. She goes, "Oh my God!" I'm like, "What?" She goes, "I'm reading this post about this. Someone was looking for." This is gonna sound ridiculous. They were looking for Lil Wayne tickets, and they were like not looking to spend a ton of money, but would love to go to the show if anyone's selling tickets. And someone in the comments was like, why don't you just sell your piece of shit car and then buy tickets? Like, basically making fun of him.
Yeah.
And the guy responded and was like, listen, full name, full address, phone number, like looked all his information up, like, why don't you shut up? I'm like, dude, this is like, dude. That went from 0 to 100, and now there's like, now that guy's like fearing for his life.
Oh my God.
He's like, what the hell? Like, it's just
it's gotten out of control.
But it's like calling people out. But yeah, I mean, there's the social media has done some crazy things. especially recently. I mean, I feel like the stuff that we send each other back and forth is almost more like in shock and awe that it even exists. Like, how is this? How are these real people?
It's not great.
It's not great.
Yeah, but I think from the really what was the catalyst for this conversation was just, I think for me it's, I mean, I texted you this offline where it's like in the past decade of my life, surrounding yourself with people who you know have your back, who are going to support you regardless of if you're struggling, if you're successful, and finding those people, like finding that tribe of people who really support you. And they may not be the people that you think they're going to be. They may not be the people on paper who typically are your biggest supporters. It might not be friends you grew up with. It might not be your family. It might be people outside of that network. But I think surrounding yourself with people who have a similar mindset to you, with people who believe in what you're doing, with people who are not jealous, who are not narcissistic, with people who just want the best for you regardless of what's happening in your life. I think that you're going to have cheerleaders, you're going to have people who are in your corner that are going, you'll just know that they're there for you. And I think that that's really important. And I don't think that you necessarily need to look to a circle that's really close to you to find that. So when I think of the people who support me the most, obviously my immediate family, but then it's people who I've met the past 10 years who are similar mindset, similar businesses, right? The CCS community, the CCS people, like people within our podcast network, vendors, partners that we work with, where it's like, dude, I have people in my life that I didn't know a decade ago that I feel like are some of the most valuable relationships in my life, and don't be afraid to really nourish those relationships and meet new people and find people who are willing to support you regardless of whether you're struggling or succeeding. And it might not be the people that on paper usually check out that's the case.
It's funny how much weight is put on like how long you've known someone. It's like, you've known them your whole life. It's like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like that was chapter 2.
Yep. So
we've moved on.
Yeah, go find some of those people. It's worth it. And then if relationships that you have in your life aren't serving you, if they're not working, I don't think that you need to feel guilty that you aren't leaning on those people that you once did before. And if you have a bunch of old people trolling you on Facebook or online, just try and laugh about it. It's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a builder listening to this, you've had the same conversation with a parent, a spouse, a mentor, with a voice in your own head. We hear you, and that's what this conversation was really about. And we wanted to record this for ourselves. You know, Tyler and I have been chatting about it, but knew it would also be valuable to you guys. So if you guys want to continue the conversation, make sure you join our Circle community. Link is below and in our bio, and we can dig into it a little bit more.
I have been enjoying I love getting on there like every couple of days,
cool,
and seeing
man.
the questions that people are asking, and how helpful people are and how engaged people are. Not even like for me, I think that I give my perspective because it's different than a lot of people, but just seeing the perspective of people within the community and how they do things and how they're helping, I'm like, damn, I'm learning every single day here, and taking little bits and pieces of what other people are doing, and I'm like, that's a really great idea. So it's been super cool to see, and I really enjoy seeing all the interaction on there. It's very educational for me and very helpful for me.
Sweet. Well, if you guys are in the community, great. If not, make sure you check it out and join. We got some really cool stuff in the works, and you get the first dibs, whether you're in the community or on our newsletter. So make sure you join both or one of them.